Hello, and welcome to my video. Today we're going to be talking about 3 different Active Directory facets: group policy objects, operations masters, and replication. Let's get started. So, let's start with talking about what group policy objects are. Group policy objects, also known as GPOs, are used in group policy to control user accounts and user activity. Basically, they're rules that can be applied at any level: the local level, site-wide level, domain level, or just organizational units. Group policy objects make things a lot easier when running an Active Directory domain because you don't have to waste time installing certain things on every single computer individually when you can implement them using group policy, among many other things that we'll talk about. To add software installation packages to user settings, you can either publish or assign them. Published packages are available for installation by users in the selected site, domain, or organizational unit, by either add or remove programs in the control panel or file activation. Users in the selected site, domain, or organizational unit receive assigned packages the next time they either log on or when the computer restarts. To set group policy software installation defaults, you're going to do 2 different things. Open Group Policy Software Installation. In the console tree, right-click Software Installation. Click Properties, and on the General tab, specify the following options. In Default Package Location, specify the default software distribution point. In New Packages, specify how to add new packages to user settings. By default, packages can be either published or assigned. If you want to select these options for each package, click Display and Deploy in the software dialog box. For even more control on a per package basis, click Advanced. Finally, in Installation User Interface options, click Basic or Maximum, depending on how apparent you want the installation process to be to the users. Another option with GPOs is automatic installation. To specify automatic installation options based on a file extension name, you have to do 4 main things. Open Group Policy Software Installation. Right-click on Software Installation. Now click Properties and then click the File Extensions tab. On the File Extension tab, there are a few options that you can specify, just like in our last example. It's that simple. One thing that I should mention though, to complete both of these procedures, you must have edit setting permission to edit a GPO. By default, members of domain administrators, enterprise administrators, or group policy creator owners have the edit setting permission to edit a GPO. One final thing that I want to mention before we move on to the next topic is when you upgrade an application, turn off automatic installation for any older versions. The next thing I want to talk about are password requirements and how you can link them using GPOs. The first thing you want to do is set passwords must meet complexity requirements to enabled. This policy setting, combined with a minimum password length of 8, ensures that there are at least 218,340,105,584,896 possibilities for one single password. Another part of best practices for password requirements is the use of alternative key character combinations. They greatly enhance the complexity of a password. However, requiring all users in an organization to adhere to such stringent password requirements can result in unhappy users and an extremely busy help desk. Consider implementing a requirement in your organization to use alternate characters in the range from 0128 through 0159 as part of all administrator passwords. Password settings to configure include enforce password history so that people can't reuse an old password, maximum password age, minimum password length, which I talked about earlier, should be at least 8, and make sure you enable password must meet complexity requirements. Store passwords using reversible encryption so that people can't locate it once they're stored. Now you're probably wondering, how do I configure these requirements? Well, let me walk you through it. First, you're going to open Active Directory Users and Computers. In the console tree, right-click the domain or organizational unit that you want to set your group policy for. Now click Properties, then click the Group Policy tab. Next, you're going to click an entry in the Group Policy Object Links to select an existing Group Policy object and then click to edit. You can also click New to create a new GPO and then click Edit. In the console tree, click Password Policy, Group Policy Object, followed by the computer's name. Then in the Details pane, right-click the policy setting that you want and click Properties. If you are defining this policy setting for the first time, select the Define this policy setting checkbox. Select the options that you want and then click OK. Easy as that. Our next topic is what is an operations master? Simply put, it's a domain controller assigned specific roles. There's 5 different roles that fall into this category. The 5 master roles are Schema Master, Domain Naming Master, Relative Identifier Master, RID Master, Primary Domain Controller Emulator, and Infrastructure Master. The Schema Master and Domain Naming Master are per forest roles. This means there's only one Schema Master and one Domain Naming Master in the entire forest. The other operations are per domain roles, meaning that each domain in a forest has its own RID Master, Primary Domain Controller Emulator, and Infrastructure Master. So in a forest with only one domain, there are 5 operations master roles. In a forest with more than one domain, there are more than 5 roles because the per domain roles need to exist in each domain. So what's the operations master's purpose? Well, Active Directory Domain Services is a multi-master enabled database, which provides the flexibility of allowing changes to the directory to occur at any domain controller. However, some changes, if performed in a multi-master fashion, can cause errors in the Active Directory database. For these changes, one domain controller, called an operations master, is assigned to accept requests for such changes. Operations masters perform updates to the directory in a single master fashion, meaning that only the domain controller assigned to hold these operations is allowed to process the update. The single master update model prevents conflicting updates from being made to the Active Directory database. Okay, so now you know what an operations master is, its purpose, but how do you find your current operations master? Well, the 2 best ways to find who has those roles is by using 2 different commands. The first is get Active Directory forest. You're going to use this one to find the 2 roles that are forest-wide, like I mentioned earlier, the Schema Master and the Domain Naming Master. FT just puts it in a table to make it readable. And then you're going to do the same thing with get Active Directory domain for the remaining 3 roles. Before moving on to our next topic, I want to touch on how to find who has administrative rights user-wise. The easiest way to query them is using the netdom command. This would be your exact syntax if you were querying for example.com. Obviously, since that's not the name of your domain, you would adjust this to whatever your domain name is. Now I want to talk to you guys about replication through Active Directory. The easiest way for me to show you how this works is by going to my own virtual machines and doing a demonstration. Alright, so now we're going to be doing the demonstration. As you can see, I'm going to log in here using my administrator account, bugsent10. I'm on my domain controller 10 right now. You can see that right at the top. I know it's not the best quality, but it'll work for now. Now you're going to open up Server Manager and go over to Tools. Then you're going to mouse over to Active Directory Users and Computers. Wait for the snap-in to load. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is add a user. You go right into the Users category and press New User. I'm going to name it Test Replication, because we're going to be using this user to log into our other domain controller to see if it replicates users between the two. The nice thing about this is this will prove that replication is working on all parts. And after we do this, I will show you guys a command line tool that you can use as well to make sure your replication is running properly. Okay, we gotta add him to a member of domain admins. It just seems to make this a lot easier. Then you can log him into the other domain controller without having any issues. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, so now he's in there, and we can get out of this domain controller and go over to domain controller 8. Now I'm going to log in using that user that we just created. Don't mind that, that was one I created earlier. So you click other user, you put your domain name in, which is bugs, and then a backslash, and then your new user, which in this case is test replication. Oops, there we go. Then you're going to fill in the password, and there you go. See, it works. So that right there proves that they replicated between domain controllers, but we're also going to go one step further and go into Active Directory users and computers on this domain controller. Alright, now we're back. It's loaded. And wait for the snap-in to load. You can see I'm on domain controller 8. And we're going to open users. Scroll to the bottom. There it is, test replication. You can see it's got all the same settings as it does in our other domain controller because it's the same user. It's just replicated over to our domain controller. And that's basically it. You can also see that I'm still logged in as that user. It replicated almost immediately. So that's our demonstration. Thanks for watching. Another way to verify replication is by using the repadmin command line tool. You're going to add the argument show replication or show repl and your server name. If you specify a server name, it'll run it on any server. If you don't specify your server name, it'll run it on the server that you're currently using. The final topic I'm going to talk about in this video is how to set up an accurate time server. The easiest way I've found to do it is using GPO with WMI filters. Using a GPO is always better to automate as much as possible, and then you can transfer the role to another domain controller. First, you're going to create a GPO and link it to the domain controller's container. Then, you're going to set a WMI filter to target the primary domain controller emulator using this syntax. You can see it right down below. Next, you want to be able to get to this dialog box. I'm going to describe to you how to do that. You're going to open the GPO for addition and go to Computer Configuration, /Administrative Templates, /System, /Windows Time Service, /Time Providers. Then go to Configure Windows NTP Client, and right here you're going to enable this client. Now that your time server is set up, you can verify what domain controller is using what time server by using this command. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope to see you next time.